And here with us now to talk about all of this, we have Democratic Congressman Jake Auchincloss of Massachusetts. He's also a Marine veteran who commanded infantry in Afghanistan and special operations in Panama. Congressman, thanks for being with us. I first want to ask you about these negotiations between Israel and Hamas. How hopeful are you that there will be a deal, especially now that we have learned that Hamas has backed off of some of its key demands?
Clearly going in the right direction, a testament to President Biden's leadership and the unique role that the United States can play in that region as a stabilizing force. I haven't seen the text of the deal, obviously, so I don't want to comment on the specifics, but any deal that gets hostages home and that creates a ceasefire for humanitarian aid to come into Gaza is a step in the right direction.
The death toll in Gaza is expected to be passing 30,000 this week. Israel continues to say that when it comes to their approach to what level of civilian deaths are acceptable as they target Hamas in Gaza, that what the IDF is doing there is no different than the U.S. military approach in Afghanistan following 9/11. As I mentioned, you were a veteran of that war. Is Israel correct here?
I think that Central Asia and Middle East is such a complicated region that analogies serve us very poorly. I think we should evaluate this situation with its own deeply complicated history and context. And what is clear here is that we need something that gets the hostages home. There are Americans and children being held hostage for more than 3 months by Hamas. We need a mutual, sustainable ceasefire, and that is only possible with a vision for governance in Gaza that does not include Hamas, because Hamas has promised to repeat the atrocities of October 7th. And Hamas has, as part of its charter, the destruction of not only the Jewish state, but of Jewish people the world over. And President Biden is driving towards the kind of near-term compromise that can create the conditions for a more long-lasting and sustainable peace in the region. And this is one element of a broader strategy for the United States about standing with democracy the world over. It's not just Israel in the Middle East. It's Taiwan in the Indo-Pacific. It's Ukraine in Europe. It's why this national security supplemental is so critical.
Go back to Gaza, though, because the deaths of children and other civilians in Gaza are just very clearly outpacing those in Afghanistan, Iraq, the Ukraine conflict. So I know that there are different elements here that you don't want to compare apples to apples. But when we're talking about numbers and we're talking about collateral damage, there is a way to compare this. Is Israel correct in saying that their approach to how many civilians dead is the same as how the U.S. approached things in Afghanistan, in your view?
Yeah, I just think comparing one military conflict in this region to another is going down the wrong path. The right path to me is to compare the counterfactual, is to say, what would this situation look like if Hamas were allowed to remain at the levers of power in Gaza? And Hamas is an internationally recognized terrorist organization. It's using its own denizens as human shields. It is holding hostages. Hamas needs to be dismantled so that it cannot have any role in post-war governance in Gaza. And the military operations that Israel is pursuing are the necessary leverage for the return of hostages and for the demilitarization of Gaza so that the Palestinian people can kind of have the kind of future that they deserve.
Do you have concerns about this death toll?
Every person of good conscience views the death of any child, Israeli, Palestinian, as a tragedy. And it is devastating to see what is happening in the Middle East right now, and which is why we need a sustainable ceasefire that prevents this violence from ever being repeated. And unfortunately, insofar as Hamas is allowed to remain extant in the Gaza Strip, it will be repeated. And that's not my opinion, that's Hamas's assertion.
I do want to turn now to Russia. If you can react to this new report that Putin critic Alexei Navalny, who died in prison earlier this month, was to be part of a prisoner exchange deal along with 2 Americans held in Russia, according to his aides, a Western official confirming this. They say it was to be an exchange for an FSB assassin who is imprisoned in Berlin. What's your reaction to this?
I can't speak to the veracity of that claim. It's new, but I think the overall takeaway here is unchanged, which is that Putin's treatment of Navalny is a stand-in for his autocratic and repressive vision that he has and that China's Xi Jinping shares. They want to stamp out freedom and democracy, not only in their own countries, but the world over. And Ukraine is on the front lines of the fight against that autocratic vision, which is why it's so critical that Speaker Johnson bring the Ukraine aid bill to the floor. Speaker Johnson's on his way out. He's going to lose in November. He's going to be kicked out by his own conference. But he can decide what his legacy will be, and his legacy should be to meet the moral moment and support our ally in Ukraine.
There's also this issue of a potential shutdown, which the trajectory is headed in the wrong direction, I would say, at this moment. Do you expect that there will be a shutdown?
It's entirely up to the House Republican Conference. As you know, last May in 2023, the president and then Speaker McCarthy came to an agreement on funding levels that cut the deficit and responsibly funded our programs and services at the federal level. Senate Republicans, the White House, Senate Democrats, House Democrats, we've all stayed with that deal. It was House Republicans who walked away from that deal. They actually fired Speaker McCarthy over that deal, and they remain the odd man out on this. So if they want to govern like grown-ups, then we have no issue. We have the deal that passed Congress. But if they want to have a tantrum at the negotiating table, then we're heading towards a shutdown.
Congressman Jake Auchincloss, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. We appreciate it.
Good to be with you.
Next, the